The council chamber floated in perfect silence above the stars. Inside, 300 representatives from across the galaxy sat in their designated seats. Some breathed oxygen, others methane. Some had skin, others had scales or crystalline shells. But today, they all shared one thing. They were tired of hearing about humanity's accomplishments. Ambassador Ji-Won Park stood at the speaker's platform. Her dark hair had more gray in it than when she first arrived 30 years ago. Her uniform, simple blue and white, looked plain next to the elaborate garments of other species. She held a data tablet and spoke in her calm, measured voice. In the past cycle, human peacekeeping teams mediated 47 conflicts across council space, Ji-Won said. We helped resolve 12 trade disputes that threatened to become violent. We prevented 6 wars before they could begin. Our relief teams assisted 4 natural disasters, and our mediators helped resettle 3,000 refugees from— Enough! The voice cut through the chamber like breaking glass. Council Speaker Zix Thara rose from her seat, her crystalline body catching the light and throwing rainbow patterns across the walls. The Vrelnian leader's voice rang with irritation. Every cycle we hear the same speech. Humans saved this. Humans fixed that. Do you think we are children who need constant supervision? Ji-Won's expression did not change. Speaker, I am simply providing our required report. Your required report is propaganda, Zix Thara said. She gestured with one crystalline arm toward the gathered delegates. You make it sound like the council would collapse without you. As if we ancient civilizations cannot manage our own affairs. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the chamber. Trade Minister Gormath, a massive Krogian whose arthropod body filled 3 seats, clicked his mandibles in approval. The speaker is correct. Humans exaggerate their importance. Any species could do what you do. Ji-Won looked out at the faces before her. Some looked uncomfortable. A few of her allies looked worried, but most looked annoyed or indifferent. She had seen this attitude growing for years. The better humans did their job, the less visible their work became. And invisible work was easy to dismiss. If the council believes our service is redundant, Ji-Won said quietly, then perhaps we should discuss reducing our role. An excellent idea, Zix Thara said. Her voice carried satisfaction. I call for an immediate vote. Should humanity's special peacekeeping mandate be eliminated? Should their expanded council privileges be reduced to standard member status? The vote happened quickly, too quickly. Ji-Won watched the display as numbers appeared. 73 in favor, 12 opposed. The rest abstained. Only humanity's closest allies had voted no. The chamber filled with applause. Not polite acknowledgement, but genuine celebration. Zix Thara's crystalline form seemed to glow brighter with triumph. Gormath's clicking mandibles sounded almost like laughter. Ji-Won stood very still. She looked at the faces celebrating around her. 3 decades of work. 3 decades of late nights finding compromise solutions. 3 decades of protecting people who now cheered her dismissal. She felt Captain Min-Seo Choi's presence behind her. The military officer had accompanied her today, standing silent in her dress uniform. Finally, Ji-Won spoke. Her voice remained calm, but it carried through the chamber with perfect clarity. Very well. We have served this council faithfully for generations. We did not do it for recognition or special privileges. We did it because we believed in what this council represented. We believed in cooperation between species. We believed in peace. She paused, looking directly at Zix Thara. But if our service is neither wanted nor valued, we will not force it upon you. Effective immediately, humanity withdraws from all council peacekeeping operations. We withdraw from all diplomatic interventions. We withdraw from all mediation services. We will maintain our embassy for basic diplomatic relations, but nothing more. The applause stopped. Sudden silence filled the chamber. You cannot be serious, Gormath said. but he sounded uncertain now. "We are completely serious," Ji-won said. "Captain Choi will begin immediate recall of all human peacekeeping forces. Our mediators will return home. Our trade negotiators will conclude their current assignments and depart. We wish the Council well in managing its own affairs." She gave a small, respectful bow. Then she turned and walked toward the exit. Min Seo followed, her military bearing perfect. Behind them, the chamber erupted into confused voices. Some laughed, saying good riddance. Others asked questions that no one answered. A few looked worried. Ji-won did not look back. Hours later, orders went out across the galaxy. Human ships prepared to depart from hundreds of worlds. Mediators packed their belongings. Peacekeeping teams received recall notices. The withdrawal was calm, professional, and complete. On the mining colonies of Sector 7, Tai Yang Kong received his orders. He had spent 5 years keeping peace between Vrelnian and Krogion mining corporations. The companies argued constantly over mineral rights, but Tai Yang always found solutions both could accept. He looked at his desk, covered with maps showing disputed territories, and sighed. Then he began packing. At the great commercial hub of the Outer Rim, Hai Wansong read her recall message. She had negotiated trade agreements between 6 different species for 8 years. The work was exhausting but rewarding. She wondered who would take her place. Then she realized the council probably thought anyone could do her job. In her quarters, Ji-won sat alone. The walls held photographs from 30 years of service. Here, she stood between 2 alien leaders who had almost gone to war, all 3 smiling after finding peace. There, she accepted an award from a colony she had saved from famine. Another showed her much younger, full of hope about making the galaxy better. She touched the most recent photo. It showed her entire team, humans who dedicated their lives to serving others. Good people who asked for nothing except the chance to help. A tear rolled down her cheek, just one. Then she straightened her shoulders and began composing her final report. The withdrawal would be handled with the same professionalism humans brought to everything they did. Even when leaving, they would do it right. Outside her window, human ships began moving. Slowly, quietly, humanity retreated from galactic affairs. The Council had made its choice. Now they would live with it. And across the galaxy, in mines and trading posts and refugee camps and disputed territories, people who depended on human mediators watched them leave. Some celebrated. Some felt uneasy. None of them truly understood what was about to happen. The cracks would start small. They always did. 3 weeks passed. To the Galactic Council, it felt like a relief. To the galaxy itself, it felt like losing gravity. In Sector 7, the mining colonies orbited a mineral-rich asteroid belt. Vrelnian and Krogion corporations had competed there for decades. When Tai Yang Kong managed their disputes, the competition stayed peaceful. Profitable, even. Both companies made money. Both felt treated fairly. Tai Yang had left exactly 19 days ago. The first fight started over a boundary marker. A Krogion survey team moved it 3 meters, just 3 meters, into disputed territory. The Vrelnian overseer, whose name was Thrixol, saw it happen. His crystalline body flared hot with anger. "This is theft," Thrixol declared, confronting the Krogion mine boss Grath. "Your people moved our marker." "It was in the wrong place," Grath rumbled, his massive body blocking the tunnel. "We are correcting an error." "There is no error. This is our territory." "Your territory?" Grath's mandibles clicked rapidly, a sign of anger. "We have mined this sector for 10 cycles." Before, when these arguments started, both sides called Tai Yang. The human would come, listen to both sides for hours if needed, check old records, and find a solution. Sometimes he moved the marker to a new spot that satisfied both. Sometimes he suggested splitting the disputed area. Sometimes he found completely different solutions no one had thought of. But Taeyang was gone, so Thrixal and Grath argued face to face. The argument grew louder. Workers from both sides gathered. Someone threw a rock. Someone else shoved back. Within an hour, 20 workers were fighting in the tunnel. By day's end, 3 Krogians and 2 Vrelnians were injured. Both corporations pulled their workers back. They stopped cooperating on anything. The mining output dropped by 40%. Thrixal tried to mediate, as he had seen Taeyang do, but he could not stay neutral. Every suggestion favored his own people. Grath noticed immediately and refused to negotiate. The dispute hardened into bitter resentment. Similar problems erupted across the sector. Small disagreements became large ones. No one seemed able to find middle ground anymore. At the commercial hub where Haewon Song once worked, 6 species traded goods worth billions. The trading station spun through space like a great wheel, different sections built for different atmospheres and gravities. Haewon had kept the complex trade networks running smoothly. She understood what each species valued. She knew when to push for better terms and when to accept compromise. Most importantly, every species trusted her to be fair. Her replacement arrived 1 week after she left, a Krogian named Vexmar, chosen because the Krogians had the most trade volume. Vexmar was intelligent and experienced, but he was also Krogian. The first major negotiation involved food shipments. A Vrelnian company wanted to sell crystalline nutrients. A methane-breathing species called the Tulgars wanted to buy them, but only at a certain price. 2 other species needed the same nutrients. Vexmar studied the situation. Then he brought in a Krogian supplier who offered lower prices. The Krogian supplier got the contract. The Vrelnian company lost a major deal. "This is bias," the Vrelnian trader protested. "You favored your own kind." "I got the best price," Vexmar said defensively. "That is my job." "Your job is fairness. The human understood that." But Vexmar had done nothing technically wrong. He had found a better price. The problem was that every species now worried he would favor Krogians. Trust, which Haewon had built over years, evaporated in days. One by one, species started dealing directly with each other, bypassing Vexmar entirely. But without a skilled mediator, deals fell apart. Misunderstandings happened. Cultural insults occurred because no one understood all the different customs. 3 major trade agreements collapsed in 2 weeks. The problems spread. On a border world, 2 species had argued over territory for generations. A human mediator named Sun He had maintained a fragile peace agreement. Both sides patrolled a buffer zone. Both agreed to notify each other before any troop movements. Sun He checked in weekly, making sure both sides felt heard. She left 21 days ago. The peace agreement she managed held thousands of pages of details. Who could build where, how to share water rights, what to do if someone crossed the border accidentally. Sun He knew every word. More importantly, she knew the spirit behind the words. 8 days after she left, a patrol from one side entered the buffer zone without notifying the other side. It was not hostile. They were tracking a dangerous animal. But the other side saw unauthorized troops in the buffer zone. They sent their own troops in response. Both sides claimed the other violated the agreement. Both felt betrayed. No one remained who understood the agreement well enough to explain that the animal tracking clause on page 407 allowed emergency patrols. The human who knew that detail was gone. Shots were fired. No one died, but 3 soldiers were wounded. Both sides pulled back, but the peace agreement was badly damaged. In the council chambers, junior staff members started noticing patterns. A young clerk named Pix, who had multiple eyes on stalks, spent her days filing reports. She began seeing the same words over and over. Minor dispute escalated. Trade negotiations failed. Peacekeeping request denied. Pix pulled old records and compared them. Before the humans left, disputes were reported but rarely escalated. After humans left, everything escalated. She showed her findings to her supervisor. "These things happen," her supervisor said dismissively. "Temporary adjustment period." Meanwhile, Council Speaker Zix Thara gave an interview to the Galactic news networks. Her crystalline form glowed with confidence as she spoke. "We are discovering how unnecessary human interference truly was," she said. "Yes, there are some small problems as we transition. But the Council is fully capable of managing our own affairs. We do not need humanity's constant meddling." But behind her confident words, reports kept arriving. Small conflicts becoming medium conflicts. Medium conflicts threatening to become large ones. Refugees from 3 different worlds being expelled by host planets, with nowhere to go because the human resettlement programs had stopped. Trade routes disrupted, aid shipments delayed, and in the council chambers themselves, something changed. During a routine session about agricultural policy, 2 ambassadors began arguing. The argument grew heated. Voices rose. One ambassador made a cultural insult, probably by accident. The other responded with anger. Before, this never escalated. Human mediators worked behind the scenes before every session. If they sensed tension between species, they talked to both sides privately. They explained misunderstandings. They suggested compromise language. They made sure everyone felt respected. Now, with no humans present, the 2 ambassadors nearly came to blows. Security had to separate them. The session ended in chaos. In the empty seats where human observers once sat, there was only silence. On Earth, G1 received reports from across the galaxy. Each report described the same pattern: things falling apart. She felt no satisfaction in being right. She felt only sadness. Across human space, other former mediators read similar reports. Some wanted to help immediately. Others felt angry that their work had been dismissed so easily. All of them watched and waited. In the mining tunnels of Sector 7, fires now burned where disputes turned violent. On the commercial hub, entire sections closed as trade collapsed. On border worlds, troops massed where peace had once reigned. 3 weeks. That was all it took for the cracks to show, and the cracks were spreading. The galaxy was learning a hard lesson. The most important work is often invisible. You only notice it when it stops. 6 weeks after humanity's withdrawal, the galaxy was burning. The mining dispute in Sector 7 had grown beyond anyone's control. What started as arguments over boundary markers became something darker. Krogian and Vrelnian corporations hired private security forces. Those forces clashed in the asteroid fields. Ships exchanged fire. Stations lost atmosphere when stray weapons fire punctured hulls. The violence spread. Other species who mined in Sector 7 had to choose sides or leave. Most left. The corporations recruited allies from their home territories. What had been a business dispute became a corporate war. 12 species were now involved, pulled in through old alliances and trade agreements. The death toll reached 800, and it kept growing. Council Speaker Zix Thara called an emergency session. Her crystalline body no longer glowed as brightly as before. Stress was dimming her, something that rarely happened to Vrelnians. "We must stop the Sector 7 conflict before it spreads further," she announced to the gathered council. "I propose we send negotiators to meet with both corporate leaders." "Who will you send?" asked Ambassador Corval, a methane breather whose voice came through translation devices. "The humans are gone. We will send qualified council representatives," Zix Thara said stiffly. "We managed diplomacy for millennia before humans arrived. We can do so again." She chose 3 experienced ambassadors, 1 Vrelnian, 1 Krogian, and 1 neutral party from a species called the Quicks. All 3 had decades of diplomatic experience. All 3 were respected in their fields. They arrived at Sector 7 5 days later. The Vrelnian ambassador, Tilmoth, met with Thrixel and the Vrelnian corporate leaders. The Krogian ambassador, Gextar, met with Grath and the Krogian side. Then, all three ambassadors brought both sides together for negotiations. The meeting lasted 17 minutes. Tilmoth opened by suggesting the Krogians had violated territorial agreements. Gextar immediately defended the Krogian position, saying the Vrelnians were being unreasonable. The Quix ambassador tried to find middle ground, but did not understand the technical details of mining rights well enough. He suggested solutions that both sides found insulting. Thrixol accused Tilmoth of bias. Grath accused Gextar of the same. The Quix ambassador, trying to calm things down, accidentally used a phrase that was deeply offensive in Krogian culture. He did not know. There was no human present to quietly warn him. The meeting ended with both sides angrier than before. The ambassadors returned to the council and reported complete failure. "Perhaps," Korval said quietly in the council chamber, "we should ask the humans for help." "Absolutely not," Zixthara said. Her voice was sharp, but there was something underneath it, something like fear. "We do not need them." But the crisis was spreading in ways no one had predicted. The refugee situation became desperate. 3 worlds had hosted refugee populations with human help. The humans had carefully matched refugees with host worlds that could support them. They provided integration programs. They mediated between refugees and local populations when conflicts arose. When the humans left, the refugee support systems collapsed. Local populations, without mediators to help them understand the refugees' situations, grew resentful. Old prejudices surfaced. Within weeks, all 3 host worlds began expelling refugees. 15 million beings suddenly had nowhere to go. They crowded into temporary camps on border stations. The stations, not designed for such numbers, ran out of food and water. Disease spread. Children died. The council tried to coordinate relief efforts. They failed. Different species sent aid to refugees from their own kind, but ignored others. No one could agree on resettlement plans. Each species wanted refugees placed somewhere else. When humans ran these operations, they treated all refugees equally. They found homes for everyone, even when it was difficult. They advocated for those who had no voice. Without humans, the most vulnerable beings in the galaxy were abandoned. And then the ancient conflicts returned. For 200 years, the species called Vord and the species called Telix had maintained an uneasy peace. They shared a border. Both claimed the same star systems. Wars had been fought over these claims for thousands of years before the Council existed. 50 years ago, a human mediation team spent 3 years negotiating a treaty. The treaty was brilliant in its complexity. It gave both species what they truly needed while requiring both to give up what they merely wanted. It established trade between them. It created joint colonies. It transformed enemies into partners. But the treaty required constant maintenance. Human mediators checked on it yearly. They addressed small problems before they became large ones. They reminded both sides of what they had gained through peace. The last human mediator visited 4 months ago. Now, with no human oversight, both sides began testing the boundaries. A Vord ship crossed into disputed space. The Telix sent 3 ships in response. The Vord sent 6. Positions hardened. Old hatred resurfaced. They never meant to keep the peace, Vord leaders said. They were waiting to betray us. We cannot trust them, Telix leaders said. They violate our agreement. Both sides massed fleets at their borders. Both prepared for war. 200 years of peace teetered on the edge of collapse. Across the galaxy, the pattern repeated. Every peace agreement humans had maintained began cracking. Every trade network they had supported started failing. Every conflict they had mediated reignited. The council chambers became a place of chaos. Species shouted at each other. Old alliances fractured, new hostilities emerged. Council sessions ended early because delegates nearly fought each other. On Earth, Ambassador Seo-Jun Lee remained at humanity's embassy. His job was to facilitate the final evacuation of human personnel and maintain basic diplomatic relations. Nothing more. The embassy staff had shrunk from 200 people to just 12. One morning, a council delegation arrived. 5 ambassadors, including one who had voted to eliminate humanity's peacekeeping role. They requested a meeting with Seo-Jun. He received them in a small conference room. The furnishings were simple. Human flags hung on the walls, reminders of what the council had dismissed. Ambassador Lee, the lead delegate began. His name was Torkson, and he looked uncomfortable. We come to request temporary assistance with the current crisis. What crisis? Seo-Jun asked politely. The multiple crises, Torkson admitted. Sector 7, the refugee situation, the border conflicts. We thought perhaps human mediators could provide guidance. Seo-Jun looked at each delegate in turn. Then he spoke carefully, his voice respectful but firm. The council voted that humanity's peacekeeping services were unnecessary. You believed any species could do what we do. We accepted that decision. We will not pretend to be needed where we are not wanted. But the situation is deteriorating, another delegate said urgently. Then the council must address it. Humanity will defend our own worlds and protect our own people. The council must solve its own problems. You would let millions suffer out of pride? Torkson asked, and there was anger in his voice now. No, Seo-Jun said quietly. We let millions suffer out of respect. Respect for the council's decision. Respect for your right to manage your own affairs. You told us we were meddling. We stopped meddling. This is what you wanted. The delegation left with nothing. Their report to the council was simple. Humanity refused to help. That night, Zixthara sat alone in her private chambers. Reports surrounded her. Death counts rising, conflicts spreading, economic collapse approaching. Trade routes dying, refugees starving. She finally understood. Humans had not been meddling. They had been holding everything together. Their patience in finding solutions. Their care in understanding all sides. Their genuine desire for peace over pride. Their ability to see connections between problems that others missed. The galaxy had not noticed because the work was invisible. Like gravity. You only notice it when it stops. Her crystalline form dimmed further as she realized the terrible truth. The council was dying. And it was dying because they had sent away the only species who knew how to keep it alive. 10 weeks after humanity withdrew, the Galactic Council stood at the edge of complete collapse. The corporate war in Sector 7 had become a real war. Krogian and Vrelnian home fleets engaged each other directly. 3 battles raged across the sector. Hundreds of ships fought. Thousands died. Both species called on their allies, and those allies answered. The Council tried to impose a ceasefire. Both sides ignored it. Why would they listen? The Council had no enforcement power. The humans had provided that power with peacekeeping fleets that both sides trusted to be fair. Now those fleets protected only human worlds. The death toll passed 500,000. The refugee crisis had become a humanitarian catastrophe. 20 million displaced beings crowded into camps that could hold 2 million. Disease swept through the camps like fire. The medical supplies ran out. Food ran out. Hope ran out. Children starved while council members argued about whose responsibility it was to help. Every day, thousands died. The council watched and did nothing effective. The Vord-Telex situation exploded into open warfare. 2 centuries of peace ended in a single terrible day when a Vord commander, convinced the Telex were about to attack, struck first. The Telex responded with overwhelming force. Both species, freed from human moderation, discovered they still knew how to hate. Entire colonies burned. Ancient weapons, mothballed for generations, were brought out of storage. Battle fleets clashed at the border. The war both sides had avoided for 200 years was now inevitable, and everywhere, the pattern repeated. Every peace that humans had maintained fell apart. Every trade network they had supported collapsed. The galactic economy spiraled into depression as species refused to trade with each other. Shipping lanes became dangerous as pirates, no longer deterred by human peacekeeping patrols, attacked merchant vessels. The Council itself fractured. Multiple species announced they were withdrawing from the Council entirely. "What is the point?" they asked. "The Council cannot keep peace. It cannot protect trade. It cannot help refugees. It is useless." 23 species formally withdrew. Others prepared to follow. The Council, which had united the galaxy for 1,000 years, was dying. In the Council chambers, an emergency summit convened. Every remaining member attended. The atmosphere was desperate. Zixathera stood at the center, her crystalline body now noticeably dim. Stress had taken a visible toll. She looked at the assembled delegates and saw fear on every face. "We must act," she said. Her voice, once so confident, now carried uncertainty. "The Council cannot survive this crisis without help." "You mean without humans," Corval said bluntly. "Say what you mean, Speaker." Silence fell. No one wanted to admit it. Admitting it meant confessing they had been wrong. It meant accepting that the primitive apes had been essential all along. "Yes," Zixathera said finally. The word seemed to cost her something. "Without humans. We need them." "They refused our request for assistance," Torxon reminded everyone. Ambassador Lee made their position clear. "Then we must ask differently," Zixathera said, "not as a request for temporary help, as an acknowledgement of what we lost, what we threw away." She looked around the chamber. "I propose we send a message to Earth, not demanding, not requesting, but admitting our error and asking if humanity will help us survive our own foolishness." The vote was unanimous. Every species that once celebrated humanity's departure now begged for their return. Zixathera composed the message herself. She stood before recording equipment, her dimmed form a testament to her stress and exhaustion. She spoke slowly, choosing each word carefully. "People of Earth, leaders of humanity, this is Council Speaker Zixathera. I speak not with the voice of authority, but with the voice of humility." She paused, and her crystalline body seemed to dim further. "We were wrong. We were arrogant. We were blind. For generations, we believed ourselves wise and you merely useful. We thought your peacekeeping was interference, your mediation was meddling, your care was weakness. We did not see the truth. You were not interfering. You were binding us together. You saw connections we could not see. You understood that peace requires patience and compromise requires strength. You cared about preventing suffering while we cared about preserving pride. Without you, we are dying. Not because you conquered us, not because you controlled us. We are dying because we are destroying ourselves. We never needed protection from others. We needed protection from our own worst nature. And you provided that protection invisible and unappreciated for so long." Zixathera's voice broke slightly. It was deeply shameful for a Vrelnian to show such emotion, but she continued. 500,000 dead in Sector 7, 20 million refugees suffering, ancient wars reignited, the Council itself fracturing, all in 10 weeks. 10 weeks without your guidance. We accomplished in 10 weeks what we could not accomplish in centuries with your help. We accomplished our own destruction. We do not ask you to forget how we treated you. We do not expect forgiveness. We ask only this. Will you help us anyway? Not because we deserve it, not because we appreciate it enough, but because beings are dying, and you are the only ones who know how to stop it. We are ready to offer full partnership, full council voting rights, Formal recognition of your peacekeeping role, whatever terms you require. But more than terms, we offer something we should have given long ago. Genuine respect, true partnership. Recognition that humanity is not our servant or our savior, but our equal, our better, in the things that truly matter. The message ended. It was transmitted to Earth on every available frequency. On Earth, the message played in the human assembly. 500 representatives from every nation watched in silence. When it ended, the debate began immediately. Many were angry. They dismissed us, humiliated us. Let them suffer the consequences. Others were practical. The crisis affects billions. We cannot stand aside. And others, like former Ambassador Ji-won Park, spoke from the heart. We did not leave because we stopped caring. We left because we needed them to understand our value. They understand now. A young diplomat named Da-Eun Kim, fresh from the academy, stood and requested to speak. At 25, she was among the youngest in the assembly, but her voice was clear and passionate. Everyone asks if the council deserves our help, Da-Eun said. That is the wrong question. The refugees suffering in camps did not vote to dismiss us. The children dying of starvation did not celebrate our departure. The colonists watching their homes burn did not demand we leave. We do not help because people deserve it. We help because it is right, because we can, because seeing suffering and choosing to ignore it when we have the power to stop it makes us complicit in that suffering. Yes, the council treated us poorly. Yes, they were arrogant and dismissive. But we are not them. We do not base our actions on whether people appreciate us. We base them on whether people need us. She looked around the assembly. That is what makes us different. That is what makes us human. We build bridges even when others burn them. We find common ground even when others dig trenches. We choose cooperation over pride. Not because we are naive, because we are wise enough to know that cooperation is stronger than revenge. If we abandon the galaxy now, we prove the council right. We prove we only helped when it benefited us. But if we return on our terms with our values intact, we prove something greater. We prove that humanity's strength is not our weapons or our technology. It is our refusal to let others' failures become our own. The assembly chamber filled with applause. The vote was called. It was not unanimous, but it was decisive. Humanity would respond, but on their own terms. Admiral Yoon, commander of the Human Defensive Fleet, received her orders that night. Her ships, which had defended only human worlds for 10 weeks, prepared to move. Thousands of mediators, peacekeepers, and aid workers prepared to deploy. Ji-won stood on the observation deck of the flagship, watching Earth recede. She was going back. They all were. Not because the Council deserved it, because the galaxy needed it, and because in the end, that was what humans did. The human fleet arrived at Council space 12 weeks after they had left, but everything had changed. Ambassador Ji-won Park stood before the full Council assembly. Every delegate was present. Every eye watched her. The chamber was silent in a way it had never been before. This was not the silence of boredom or dismissal. This was the silence of desperate hope. Ji-won wore her simple blue and white uniform. She carried no weapons, no symbols of authority. She needed none. Her presence alone carried weight now. The Council has requested humanity's return, she said. Her voice was calm, measured, the same as always. We have agreed, but not on the old terms. She paused, looking at each section of the chamber. We will not return as your servants. We will not return as your saviors. We return as your partners, your equals. If the Council agrees to this, we will help. If not, we leave again, and this time we do not return. Zixthera stood. Her crystalline body, though still dimmed from stress, seemed to brighten slightly. State your terms, Ambassador Park. Full Council voting rights for humanity. Formal recognition of our peacekeeping mandate as essential Council function. veto power over any decisions that affect human mediators' safety or authority, and most importantly, genuine partnership. You treat us as equals, not subordinates. You value our contributions, not dismiss them. These terms are accepted, Zixathara said immediately. Without debate, without vote. On my authority as speaker, I accept them completely. No one objected. No one even murmured disagreement. The council had learned. Then we begin immediately, Jiwan said. Captain Minseo Choi's peacekeeping fleet moved with precision. The ships divided into task forces, each with specific assignments. The largest force headed to Sector 7, where the corporate war still raged. Minseo herself commanded the Sector 7 operation. Her ships positioned themselves between the Krogian and Vrelnian fleets. Both sides initially ignored the humans, continuing their battle. Then Minseo did something unexpected. Her ships opened fire. Not on one side, on both sides. Human weapons disabled ship systems without destroying vessels or killing crews. Within an hour, 40 ships from both fleets floated dead in space, unable to fight but safe. Crews alive, systems repairable. Minseo broadcast a message to both fleets. This ends now. Not because we are taking sides, because we refuse to let you destroy each other. You can talk, or you can lose more ships. Your choice. The fighting stopped. Both fleets withdrew, stunned by the sudden show of force. But it was force used to protect, not to conquer. Force used to save lives, not take them. On the surface of the mining colonies, Taiyang Kong walked back into the conference room, where Krogian and Vrelnian corporate leaders waited. Both sides looked exhausted. Both had lost thousands of workers and billions in resources. "Welcome back," Thrixal said quietly. The pride was gone from his voice. Only weariness remained. Tai Yang sat down. He did not smile. He did not gloat. He simply opened his data tablet and said, "Let us find a solution that works for everyone." It took 3 days. Tai Yang listened to both sides for hours. He studied maps and mineral surveys. He asked questions that made both sides think differently about the problem. Slowly, carefully, he built a framework for peace. The solution was brilliant in its simplicity. The disputed territory became a joint venture. Both corporations mined it together, sharing costs and profits equally. Both provided workers. Both made decisions together. What they had fought over became what united them. "Why did we not see this before?" Grath asked, staring at the agreement. "Because you were fighting," Tai Yang said gently. "When you fight, you only see what divides you. Peace requires seeing what connects you." Across the galaxy, similar scenes played out. Human mediators returned to their posts and began repairing what had broken. It was not easy. Trust, once shattered, takes time to rebuild. But humans specialized in patient work. The refugee crisis required a massive, coordinated response. Human aid workers arrived at the overcrowded camps and immediately began organizing relief. Food, medicine, clean water, the basics of survival first. Then came the harder work, finding permanent homes for 20 million refugees. Heiwan Song returned to her position at the commercial hub and began the complex negotiations. She matched refugees with worlds that could support them. She negotiated integration programs. She helped local populations understand the refugee situations. It took weeks, but slowly, the camps emptied. Refugees found new homes. Not perfect homes, but safe ones. Heiwan worked 18 hours a day, surviving on coffee and determination. When species tried to refuse refugees, she patiently explained why cooperation benefited everyone. When prejudice arose, she addressed it with education and understanding. "How do you do this?" a Quix official asked her one day. "How do you stay patient when dealing with such resistance?" "Because I remember that everyone has fears," Heiwan said. "Fear of change, fear of the unknown. I cannot eliminate their fears. I can only help them see that cooperation is less frightening than conflict. The Vord-Telex War proved the most difficult challenge. 200 years of peace had ended in weeks of terrible violence. Thousands were dead. Ancient hatreds had resurged. Both sides demanded justice for their losses. A team of human mediators, led by a veteran named Sang Min, arrived at the border. Neither side wanted to talk. Both wanted revenge. Sang Min did not force negotiations. Instead, he established humanitarian corridors. Human ships escorted medical supplies to both sides. Human aid workers treated wounded from both species, without favoritism. Human peacekeepers protected civilians in border regions, defending Vord and Telex equally. Slowly, the action spoke louder than words. Humans were not taking sides. They were taking the side of life over death, peace over war, healing over revenge. After 2 weeks, a Vord commander contacted Sang Min. "Why do you help us? We are not your allies." "We help because you are suffering," Sang Min said simply. "We do not need you to be our allies. We need you to be alive." It took another 3 weeks, but eventually both sides agreed to talk. The negotiations were painful. Both sides had legitimate grievances. Both had committed terrible acts. Sang Min did not minimize either side's pain. He acknowledged it, validated it, and then, slowly, helped them see a path forward. The new peace agreement took months to complete. It was different from the old one. This time, both sides understood what they had almost lost. They understood that human mediators were not there to control them, but to help them control themselves. In the council chambers, change was visible. Sessions ran smoothly again. When tensions arose, human mediators were there. Working quietly in the background, they talked to delegates before sessions. They identified potential conflicts and addressed them early. They made sure everyone felt heard. Zixthara found herself working directly with Jiwan on many issues. At first, it was uncomfortable. Admitting she had been wrong was difficult for the proud Vrelnian. But as weeks passed, something unexpected happened. She began to learn from Jiwan. "How do you stay so calm?" Zixthara asked one day after a particularly difficult session. "When delegates are unreasonable, when they ignore logic, when they let emotion override sense." "Because I understand that emotion is not the opposite of logic," Jiwan said. "Emotion is information. When someone is angry, they are telling me something important. When someone is afraid, they need reassurance. I cannot dismiss their feelings. I must understand them." Zixthara was silent for a moment. "We thought emotion was weakness." "It can be," Jiwan said, "when it controls you. But understanding others' emotions, respecting them, working with them, that is strength. That is how you build connections instead of walls." Months passed. The crisis slowly resolved. Deaths stopped climbing. Trade routes reopened. Refugees found homes. Wars ended. The council stabilized. A formal ceremony was held to sign the new council charter. It officially recognized humanity's role as peacekeepers and mediators. It gave them full partnership status. Every council member signed it. When Zixthara's turn came, she paused and looked at Jiwan. "I owe you an apology. Not just as speaker, but personally. I dismissed your service as unnecessary meddling. I was blind to what you truly did." "You were not alone in that," Jiwan said kindly. "Many did not see our work because we did it well. Invisible success looks like nothing happening." Trade Minister Gormath approached Jiwan after the ceremony. The massive Krogian looked uncomfortable, which was unusual for his species. "Ambassador Park, I want to say something. When you sought compromise, I thought it was weakness. I thought you could not make hard decisions." He paused, clicking his mandibles slowly. "I was wrong. Compromise is harder than conflict. Conflict is easy. You destroy until one side wins. But compromise? You must understand both sides. You must find creative solutions. You must have strength to choose peace when war would be simpler. I did not see that strength. I do now. Thank you, Ji-won said simply. That means more than you know. The ceremony ended with Ji-won giving a brief speech. She stood before the assembled council, in the same chamber where she had announced humanity's withdrawal. We did not return to gloat, she said. We did not return to demand gratitude. We returned because beings were suffering and we could help. That is what humanity does. We build bridges between species. We find common ground where others see only division. We believe cooperation is stronger than conflict, not because we are idealists who do not understand the galaxy's harsh realities, because we are realists who understand that cooperation is the only path to survival. Earth taught us that lesson in our own blood. For thousands of years, humans fought each other. We divided ourselves by nation, by tribe, by religion, by race. We nearly destroyed ourselves countless times. We learned slowly and painfully that our divisions were illusions, that cooperation was not weakness, but wisdom. We will not let the galaxy learn that lesson the same way. We will stand between you and your own worst impulses. We will frustrate you sometimes. We will challenge you. We will insist on peace when war seems easier, because we have seen where the easy path leads, and we refuse to walk it again. The council chamber was silent. Then, slowly, the delegates stood. All of them. The applause was not polite acknowledgement. It was genuine respect. In the back of the chamber, young Da-eun Kim watched and smiled. She was part of the new generation of human diplomats. She would carry this work forward when Ji-won retired. The torch was being passed. Da-eun thought about her speech in the assembly, about helping because it was right, not because it was appreciated. Looking around the chamber, seeing the respect in alien eyes, she realized something important. Appreciation was nice. But it was not why they did this work. They did it because somewhere, a refugee child would sleep safely tonight. Because somewhere, two species who almost went to war would trade peacefully. Because somewhere, a conflict that could have killed thousands would be resolved with words instead of weapons. That was enough. That had always been enough. The galaxy had learned that humanity's quiet strength was never weakness. It was wisdom. And wisdom, the galaxy now understood, was the rarest strength of all.